My topic today for my sermon is based upon my own personal testimony. Some of you know it. Some of you know it better than others. So the heading of it is our love for God, more importantly, His love for us. I'm trying not to act like my grandfather, be long-winded, or my uncle. I'm going to try. The first passage for my sermon is in Luke 15, verses 11 through 32 initially, but to try to condense it, I'll cut it off at verse 24. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of my estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who set him in his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Then he came to his senses and said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son and threw his arms around him and he kissed him. The son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. And let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he's now found. So they began to celebrate. In a lot of pastor sermons, she brings up how she was under the tutelage and guidance of her pastor, Pastor Melvin Wilson. Well, I grew up under the tutelage of the man who mentored him. Yes. And up until his passing, I was given instructions, guidance on how to live my life. And I strayed off. I strayed off doing things my own way. And in the midst of me doing things my own way, I became a dark person. As time went on, I became even darker. A couple years ago, during a family incident, I received a phone call about one of my family members about to pass. And at this point in time, I was in a dark area where I hadn't spoken to my family in 10 years because of my own personal decisions, my own personal things that I was going through. And when I called the hospital room to speak to my uncle, my great aunt answered the phone, and she said, the prodigal son had returned. In the midst of that, I misinterpreted. And I misinterpreted in a way where I'm like, throughout my life, being under the tutelage of my grandfather, and what he instilled in me, working hard for things, trusting in God, I'm like, how dare you call me the prodigal son, because I never asked anybody for anything. Everything that I got, everything that I had, I worked off my own blood, sweat, and tears. So how dare you call me the prodigal son? As time went on, I started seeing things in a different way. Which takes me to the second passage, which is in the book of Job. I'm going to read chapter 1 through 5. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. And the man was perfect and upright, the one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons, 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camel, 500 ox, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 she-asses, and a very great household. And so this man was greatest in all of the land, all of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called to their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And it was so that when the days of feasting were gone and about, that Job sent and sanctified them. And he rose up early one morning and burnt offerings according to the number of all of them. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed me. Oh, I messed up. I apologize for that. And he rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. But Job did this continually. In the midst of that, the book also reads how great Job was. Job was in God's favor, so on and so forth. In the midst of me even being in my dark ages, I was able to get into a career, that not a lot of black men are allowed to get into. The way that career is, that it's hard for a black man to get into, even harder to stay into, which being the Pennsylvania State Police. But still, even me being in my dark ages, God showed favor on me with that. But in the midst of my career, I started to fall even darker. Which takes me to, I'll try 16 through 22. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the fire of God has fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I am only escaped alone to tell you thee. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, chitlins, chatlings, had made out 3 bands, and they fell upon the camels, and they carried them away, ye and the slain of the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped to tell thee. While speaking, there came another and said, thy sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind in the wilderness, and smote all 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon all the young men, and they are dead. And I only escaped alone to tell thee. Job arose, and rent his mantle, shaved his head, and fell upon the ground, and worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked I shall return thither. And the Lord gave, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And all this Job sinned not, nor charged foolishly. In the midst of me going through my career, there were chains of events, one after another, which led me to make some very hard choices and decisions towards the end of my career to sever ties. In the midst of me severing ties, I formed relationships and I cut relationships. In the midst of that, in a short amount of time, I lost greatly. Which takes me to Job 42nd chapter. And Job answered to the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that thou canst be withhold from me. Who is he that hindereth counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered, then I understood not. The things too wonderful for me, and which I knew not. Here I beseech thee, and I will speak, and I will be demand of thee, and declare unto thee. In the midst of falling through that pasture, everything that Job lost, he gained 7 times fold. In the midst of me going through my trials and tribulations in a short amount of time of me losing everything, God has placed certain people in certain positions to show me what he has on the other side of this. And in a short amount of time, what he has shown me is that everything I've lost, I'll gain 7 times fold in a mighty amount of time. And in that, I'm very grateful for. And with also that being said, you know, our struggle as Christians is real. Being a Christian isn't easy. You know, we can go out and live our lives the way we want to, reap what we sow on the other end of it, but we're all going to be held accountable. And with that being said, it takes me to Ephesians. We're going to put on the full armor of God. Put on the full armor of God that ye may be able to stand against all the wiles of the devil. And we have to. In the midst of me going through my tribulations, Carlos can testify to it, different ones. I make joke of it that I walk around certain areas crying out to God, why me, why me? But never did I curse God. I just said, God, just strengthen me to get to the other side of this. I know my neighbors in my apartment building, like, this guy upstairs is nuts. All we do is hear him screaming and crying, but I was screaming and crying out to God to give me strength to endure what I have to get to the other side. And he's done that. I'm not done. But boy, the glory that I see on the other side just has me crying daily. And in closing, I just want to share this one meme that periodically pops up on Facebook that I take it to heart. And it says, once a man was asked, what did you gain regularly by praying to God? The man replied, nothing. But let me tell you what I lost. Anger, ego, greed, depression, insecurity, fear of death. Sometimes the answer of our prayers is not gaining, but losing, which is ultimately the gain. Okay.